Welcome to this LANTITE test prep lesson covering narrative texts. Let's start this lesson. Beginning with understanding that narrative texts are written works that tell a story or relate a sequence of events, typically involving characters, a setting, and a plot. These texts can be fictional, like novels and short stories, or non-fictional, such as biographies and memoirs. In the context of the LANTITE exam, narrative texts are significant because they test your ability to comprehend and interpret stories, understand character development, analyze themes, and identify the underlying messages. So next, let's get you prepped for how to analyze narratives, where we'll be walking through our 3-step process that includes structure, themes, and characters. So let's begin with structure, remembering that narratives include 5 key elements, such being introduction, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Pause the video here to state in your own words what each mean. Then push play and let's discuss them together. Great. First we have the introduction, which often sets the tone, giving the reader information about the setting, characters, and initial situation of the story. Then we have the rising action. While taking your exam, look for events or conflicts that build tension and drive the story forward. This is where the plot thickens and characters face challenges. Then there is the climax, where the main conflict reaches its peak. The climax is often the most emotionally intense part of the narrative. Fourth is the falling action. Here, observe how the story begins to resolve the conflicts introduced in the rising action. This phase leads the characters towards a resolution. And finally, we have the resolution. This is where we analyze how the story concludes. Ask yourself questions like, what happens to the main characters and how are the conflicts resolved? Our second step in analyzing narratives is to look at the story's themes, and we'll do this in 2 ways: by identifying themes and then analyzing them too. When taking your exam, you may have just read a text passage and you might be asked to identify the themes of the short passage. In this case, keep in mind that themes are the underlying messages or central ideas explored in the narrative. Common themes include love, justice, identity, and conflict. To identify a theme, ask yourself what the story is ultimately about beyond the plot. Then, and most importantly for your exam, it's time to analyze the theme. In this case, consider how the theme is developed through the actions of the characters, the events of the plot, and the resolution. Remember that story themes often reflect broader societal or moral questions. And finally, it's time to move to our 3rd step, which is to look at the story's characters in order to pay attention to their dialogue and actions, analyze how characters interact with one another, and understand their motivations for what they say and do. Wonderful job so far. Before we conclude this lesson, let's look at a practice test question. Take a moment to read the text passage and select the best answer option. Then come back when you're ready to check the solution. Great. The correct solution comes from the letter D. To find personal happiness through the artistic expression, as the passage emphasizes Leo's emotional response and personal sacrifices for the opportunity to join an art academy, which suggests a strong personal passion and desire for artistic expression. Want to make sure you're ready for questions like these on exam day? Pass on your next try at lantiteprep.com. Thanks for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.